Welp, the last League video did unexpectedly well, so let's try this again. There's an inside joke between me and my friends whenever we play ARAMs that Riot needs to implement a ranked ARAM mode, or as we call it, ranked RAMs. Something where you can prove your skills in the for fun game mode. So let's say that I recently got hired by Riot, and my first task on the job is to make ranked RAMs viable, so everyone can play it, and it makes Riot a shit ton of money, and they can party all night because of the success. To do this, we need to set some objectives, especially because ARAM already exists, so what are we trying to do here to make it a better game mode via adding rank? First, the game mode should have skill expression. After all, we don't want everything to be a roll of the dice. Like something like Teamfight Tactic or Crits in League, randomness should be a factor, but we want to minimize the frustration that RNG brings in our all-random mode. This is actually going to be the toughest thing to do and will require the most changes. We also want to minimize the work done by Riot so the game mode can be mostly self-sufficient. We also should be piggybacking off of as many systems that are already in place or stuff that's Riot's already done. We also need to figure out how to balance the game without putting extra strain on Riot's balance team. So without further ado, here are my solutions to the ranked RAM problem, with also hitting some of the problems I have with ARAMs and Riot's design system along the way. Sounds good? Alright, let's hop right in. Let's start with problem number 1, skill expression. This is actually the easiest problem to fix as ARAMs already a pretty decent indicator of skill expression. It's a completely different game than Summoner's Rift, where champions live and die by their teamfight prowess. Champions with big teamfight ults are generally more useful than champions who split push. Also because of the accelerated gold and XP that the game mode brings, more champions can skip their weak early game and rely more heavily on mid-game scaling. This means that the ARAM meta is mostly different from normals, so it can stand on its own and not stay as a supplementary game mode. In addition, players are tasked with learning almost every champion so they can get them to be played on a decent level, and to make do with random team comps they're given. Summoner's Rift to test mechanics and teamwork, whereas the main thing that ARAMs test is adaptability, improvisation, and a little bit of ingenuity. You learn to go with the flow and make do with what you get. Team comp or champions be damned. If we want to maximize the power fantasy of ARAM, which is being able to play every champion at a high level and go with the flow, then we need to do one simple thing: make every champion available in the ARAM pool. Currently, ARAM is saturated with these stupid, awful ARAM-only accounts that allow for players to consistently get OP champions like Vigar, Master Yi, and LeBlanc. Riot tried to fix this by doubling or even tripling the amount of free week champions for ARAM only, but it ended up being more of a band-aid for a gunshot wound than an actual fix, especially with the reroll system. Making the entire champion pool available would fix the ARAM-only accounts, and also enhance the skill expression and power fantasies present in ARAM. And that'll move us on to problem 2, especially if you increase the champion pool: randomness. Why do ARAM-only accounts exist? To reduce the RNG inherently present within ARAM as a game mode. Who wants to be sitting in a game that was done in Champ Select because the game gave you Ivern, Yorick, Skarner, Rel, and Sona as a team comp? So you want to give people the ability to build a team that actually works, but also prevents teams from consistently building the ultimate ARAM comp that ultimately comes up when playing ARAM. So how do we do this? First, we need to add bans. Riot once tested the ability to add bans in ARAM with the release of Butcher's Bridge back in patch 9.7, and it worked really well. This was also the patch that they added the reroll pool and a few other quality of life changes for ARAM that ended up sticking around. But Riot said that the reason for removing bans from ARAM was that it was an experimental tool and players found that it took too long for them to get into a for fun game mode. But if it's no longer a for fun mode and is now a competitive game mode, we can re-add in bans as players will be willing to wait a little longer in Champ Select to get those bans through. This will also allow for players to consistently ban champions they don't want to play against. Sure, it would mostly mean that champions like Brand or Pyke would never be available, but I think that's okay as this game mode is not testing your mastery on one champion, but instead a list of champions, and one tricks are actively punished. You shouldn't be able to be getting Pyke anyway. ARAM bans would also give Riot another metric other than win rate to lower champions' power with in ARAM. With ARAM's automated nerfs, currently they don't really have that. All they have is win rate and play rate. Also, in addition to adding in ARAM bans for our ranked RAM mode, what else would we need? Well, I think that everybody should get one reroll in Champ Select. This gives people the choice between potentially 6 champions at worst, yours and the 5 up top, as most likely everyone would use their reroll during Champ Select if you guarantee one reroll. It gives your entire team around 10 champions to select 5 out of. This will let you build a solid team without risking the ingenuity of your game by getting rid of too much randomness. There's still an element of randomness, but we're trying to minimize it as much as possible while still letting ARAM have that random identity with it. Finally, we're going to want to reduce the work done by Riot to as little as possible. And since most of my changes here already are systems that have been in ARAM before or are currently in other modes, it probably wouldn't be that hard to implement. My final system is actually something that would take Riot a little more time to add, but I think it's the most impactful. Currently, ARAM is balanced via champion balance buffs. These are incredibly inconsistent, as they make assassins like LeBlanc do 17% more damage, and make a Sona a non-champion. But the issue with this is that they attempt to balance champions based on getting them to a 50% win rate in ARAM. That's bad because certain champions are going to be inherently worse in an ARAM setting. Instead, they should balance them on attempting them to get to their Summoner's Rift win rate instead. If their win rate is below 50% in Summoner's Rift, you can balance it towards that win rate. And if it's above 50% in their Summoner's Rift win rate, then you want to get it to 50%. In addition, you may need to have some champions with a lower win rate than their Summoner's Rift, but that can be addressed when the game mode takes off and they decide to have a dedicated team just to balance ranked RAMs. Anyway, that ends the changes I wanted to make to the current ARAM mode to make ranked ARAMs viable. Have any changes you would like to see made? Have a change that you would like to make? Put it in the comments down below. And if you like the video, I wouldn't mind if you hit that subscribe button or the like button. Anyway, have a good day, and I'll see you next time.